Recording. Hey both, how are we both today?
Great, great. Had a fun day today. Learned a lot, enjoyed myself. How about you, Gareth?
Yeah, it's been another busy day like yesterday, quite a lot of information to absorb, which we'll go over in a summary point.
Right.
Today's day is obviously all about leadership. And I think, I think Mary mentioned it yesterday that we were on our toes today, Mary. I think, as experts in our fields, I think that we all learned a lot today from all the speakers. The panels were amazing again. And I've learned a lot personally, and I've had a lot of engagement today. And I think, we'll go through the details in a second, but what's interesting is that I think everybody realizes that the adaptability and the change is coming for leadership, especially after the COVID. And I think that came out quite clear through the sessions today. So, I enjoyed all the sessions, and let's get into it. So the first session that came up this morning, Gareth, do you want to give us your comments on at 10 o'clock session?
Yeah, so that was Chris on the 3 attributes of a high performance team. So he gave a very overview of COVID-19 compared to the 2018 financial crisis. And he said that businesses were very surprised at how well they've adapted, and maybe even that good things are going to come out of it, like working from home, reducing in rent costs, etc. So that was quite interesting. Then he said the military 5. I'm probably not I went for the military when I was younger. Didn't get in. Maybe it was a good. I didn't, because I think one of them was that you make up to 70% of the data and make a decision. I'm a little bit OCD, as Jamie always likes to take the mick about this. I have to have 100% or even 200% before I make a decision. He makes it on about 10%. So that's probably why we work well together. And then he went into explaining his people, the plan and stakeholder management. And he went through that and different types of organisations, etc. Then we had a lovely picture of his dog, Ruby.
Yes.
So if you don't ask, you don't get, which I thought was fair enough and a good thing to bring up, like laptops, V-towers and different areas of that. And then he finished off on the screen. I'll let you, Jamie, unless you can't remember what it said, because you thought that was brilliant. Do you remember what his screenshot said at the end or not?
Sorry, Gareth?
Remember his screenshot at the end? You must no longer be back office, take the lead.
Yeah,
take the lead.
I love that. As I say, I've got the slides from Chris's presentation, and as he said, he's probably borrowed them from other consultants. But I think that was a really telling thing at the very end, Gareth. I agree with you that I thought Chris's presentation was excellent, and clearly now that he's running our quality program alongside what he does for the CICM. I think his understanding of the industry, being part of the week, we've been working in the background with Chris for many months, but I just love the way he goes about things. He clearly understands that. I love that. I did like that slide as well, the transactional finance slide, which was, the key attributes of transactional finance. And I thought that was a really nice slide as well. But yeah, I love that slide. Mary, what were your views?
Yeah, I liked his talk. I liked the fact that he talked about managing up and managing across, not just worrying about up. And I too focused in on, if you don't ask, you don't get. I'm listening to you, and you're saying he got it from other management consultants. My husband always tells me that his mother used to tell them that if you don't ask, you don't get. I don't think she was exactly a management consultant, but she had the right idea. And I liked when he said towards the end, and I would throw this out to anyone who happens to be listening, you don't ask, you don't get. What's stopping you now? And hopefully the answer that you're coming up with is nothing.
Well, what's the worst that's going to happen? They're just going to say no.
They're going to say no, right?
What situation you're in anyway, so it's not going to change. And if they turn around and say, we can give you 50%, or yes, we can, worth the ask.
Right, and even if they say no today, and you ask for something else a month from now and they say no, and something else 2 months from now they say no, when you ask for that third thing, they're going to feel bad about saying no, so maybe they'll say yes.
Yeah, totally agree. And then straight up after Chris Sanders' presentation this morning, we had Sean from Easy Software, one of our sponsors, and he was talking about invoice processing and transparency in invoice processing. again, a good webinar, and be interested in your views, Gareth and Mary.
Actually, I have the same comment about Sean and about Daniel. One of the things that I liked is they did a demo of their product. It did not take forever. And I always tell people, like, if you want to see how the software works, go to these vendor demos. Well, you took it one step further. They got to see the demo and they didn't really have to give their name and their contact information. So to not look at it is, I don't want to say foolish, but you know, this is a great way to see how this stuff works. You agree, Gareth?
Yeah. I mean, it basically was, like you've said, showing their scanning solution. And then he gave some facts around that as well.
Yes.
So the manual cost can be anything from £4 to £25. He then did the 75% idle time, 20% the going around, and actually only 5% was actual processing, which was quite surprising to me in sometimes, but I have seen, you know, I do believe that they've seen pretty realistic figures. It would have been nice to know how that would have fitted with the automation, to have that compare. But then he did tell us that it was only 20p an invoice under the automation, which seems a big difference. He gave us an overview of like what's mandatory on the invoice information, which is good for people that are new to it. And then he gave us some percentages, which sort of goes into the chat that we had with the managers. The managers that we got on, that I don't mean to offend anyone, they're in good baskets, if you want to call it that. They're in a good environment. There is a lot of managers that don't have that investment in IT or things like that. They have to just do what they do. And those are the managers we want to encourage to talk as well. You know, they're probably scared because they probably think, Jesus, I'm looking really bad here because I've got backlogs, etc., etc. Well, this guy's telling you you're not alone.
Right.
90% of suppliers, that's a huge number. Even you know, to me anyway. And there was still like a huge 57 still receiving on paper. So there must be a massive section of our market, even though from our group we chat about the lovely end of it, there must be a big section that are still struggling and not in that situation.
Oh yeah. I loved, I'm getting ahead of it, of myself, of you actually, when the woman from Breeden said that her company went out and bought hundreds of laptops as soon as they got a whiff of what was happening. And I suspect, at least over here, most of my readers were not so lucky. Yeah,
I totally believe that. What I also liked, the point that Sean made was, it's not a magic tool, still requires human touch.
Right.
All these different tools and
right. It's not you press a button and it's done.
And I think that goes back to that point we mentioned yesterday with Julia's presentation, that I think, you know, that our vendors, obviously they make a living from selling solutions to our audience, and I get that, but clearly this week I believe they've all taken heed of that. You know, people need education, they need thought, they need advice, and clearly they will come to them for these systems. But I've been really impressed with our solution providers so far in terms of just giving the advice, which is, you know, free to our readers. And so yeah, I, again, take my hats off to Sean and Julia for both their presentations in terms of their approach. I thought it was very good, very admirable. Right.
It's also nice for people who are at smaller organizations to be able to see what this stuff does.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Right, and straight after that, we had Kevin Hart and his presentation was Excel Together, or it was all about excellence and leadership and excellence. So again, I'd be interested in your thoughts on this one, Gareth and Mary.
Why don't you start, Gareth?
Well, it was very in-depth, a very big presentation. So there was a lot of information. For me to sit here and give a summary of that would probably take a good 10 minutes. So I'm not going to do that because we haven't got the time. Sorry, Kevin. I know Kevin as well. I've met him several times. But I think overall, near the beginning of his presentation, he was saying leaders should always strive to constantly improve, develop and grow. And I think that's what Kevin's product, or whatever word you want to use, certification, etc. That's what they're about. They're about developing you, setting you all these like goals and tasks, etc. so that then you've got these seven, I think you called it the excellent 7 traits or something like that. Is that correct, Jamie? Because you've worked with him as well in developing the product for ourselves going forward. So I think it's across the week, it's proving the point that you've got to invest in people. And that's shown through the people that are communicating with their staff. They're surviving a lot better than the ones that aren't.
I liked his presentation. One of the things that when I first saw the talk, the title, I just thought he was going to talk about Excel. I don't know why I thought that, but anyway, it was not a talk about Excel. It was, and I learned a new word from him, upskill. So when he was talking about, learning, and he was talking about, so we all have to, present company, myself included, we have to, I guess, upskill and learn new things as part of it. But yeah, it was quite an in-depth presentation.
Yeah, and I agree with both of you. I think, Kevin clearly is a detailed guy. He's got lots of knowledge in the world of excellence and leadership. And I think his last statement that's sort of in his bio, if you like, it says, how can you transform yourself from good to great to greater and onwards? I think that sort of sets the tone. And I think the leadership program that we've developed alongside Kevin's team is around that point. So, as you know, Mary, we've got an AP managers program, which is like the top of our tree. So when a manager sort of gets through that qualification and they've hit that sort of level where we obviously give them a certification, we put them in that exemplary type group. The leadership program that we developed with Kevin is really to take them forward. It's to give some of those softer skills, some of that strategic skills, move them forward so they can go into those those board sessions. They can put their name at the table, if you like, of those sessions where sometimes managers don't feel they can do. So the program is around that. So Kevin's was very in depth. I agree with you both, and that's Kevin's style. He's got a lot to come across in a very short period. But again, I think the program will then demonstrate that when people sign up and take that program.
Well, I think it's great that you have it, because we always talk about the technical, this software, that software, whatever the regulatory changes are, all about the process. But everyone, present company included, could use a little help with the soft skills, and somehow that gets ignored. And then when you have to go and make a presentation, for example, to the board, God forbid, it shows.
No, I agree, totally. And then we had a great session again. Straight after that, we had the expert panel again. And, in fairness, we didn't have anybody go into the Lions Den today. I think we were all, AP and P2P professionals in that group. Rebecca Howard joined us again. But
yes, she's great.
She is. And I was talking to Rebecca offline today, and I was mentioning that I've had so much great feedback. And she said some of the feedback I gave her, she was blushing. And I thought, again, it goes to show that, Rebecca came in today. She gave her views on leadership, generic leadership. And the topic really was around leadership and what we're going to have to learn as leaders in the world. And I thought it was a great topic, and I thought it was a great discussion, and be interested in your views, Gareth and Mary.
We probably need to get a general ledger or a tax manager in. That would if you want to call it that. Yeah, so I mean, the main thing that came out of me for the group of people that was there was how everybody had increased their togetherness about the situation on COVID-19. So that was probably the main point I got out of the talk. And I'm hoping that everyone in the community feels that as well, regardless of how big or small their company is or what technologies they've got, etc. But they all agreed that it was a real key element of having Zoom calls, WhatsApp groups, APA community, etc. So like I said, if your company isn't doing that kind of thing, come on to the APA, where there is like-minded people that you can voice and chat to. And there might be somebody there that can help you through potentially what could be a tough time. As one of them said, one of her stroke workers were upset and she had to talk to them and spend that time. So we were probably, for me personally, I'm not currently an AP manager, but I would feel, and I did ask that question, has that increased because of COVID-19, that a lot more mental well-being around is spent than just processing now? whereas now you would have to spend that time having that balance of making sure everybody's happy and looking after the well-being through doing chats. People were saying they were doing games, making cakes, similar to the APA Appreciation Week, but doing it on a weekly basis within their teams. So me personally, I think good things have come from it. I know it's not something that people are enjoying. It's affecting my life and in a negative way, but from a positive point of view, if we're turning into the Brad talks and stuff, like he said, look at positive things. I believe that we're looking at it in a positive way. You know, this togetherness has developed quite a lot.
I think that Gareth, that you're right on. People, and especially the group that you had on today, show that they are leaders. They've been able to, you know, get the company up and running. They also, one of the things that I really liked, and I think a sign of a good leader, they had a lot of pride in their staff. They had a lot of pride in the work that their people were doing, and I think, I don't want to say every single one of them, but, you know, basically everybody felt more comfortable than they did when we went into this, certainly, about having people work remotely. And I think we're going to have to do that. So, and that's going to take, you know, a different type of leader.
Yeah,
so,
I agree with both you, Mary and Gareth. And I think we had a couple of new people to the expert panel today. So we had Rachel Long, who you mentioned earlier, Mary, and was a great manager. You know, she won Manager of the Year last year, and on top of that, the team that she runs, the Breeding Group, are an exceptional bunch. They really are. And what came out of Rachel's talk today was like you said, the togetherness. You know, even though they were working remotely, some had been furloughed, unfortunately. Some were working longer hours, you know, exceptionally. But there was no complaints. They were coming together. You know, it just felt like the togetherness was there. And I think I mentioned in that session with Rachel that what was lovely to see was that her CFO, you know, the top of the tree of the finance function, took it upon himself to go onto LinkedIn and praise them during AP Appreciation Week, and the head of shared services and the operational teams jumped on and really wanted to show support for Rachel and the team. Now, you know, I don't know about you, Mary, but for me, that's what AP Appreciation Week's all about.
Yes.
Recognition from everybody, not just the AP folk, but from everybody.
And it's nice to see. It's nice to see that they took the initiative to do that, and that they feel that way. Because in a lot of companies, that's not how they feel. Although, again, I'm hoping as we come out of this, more people will feel like that. And I had one AP manager say to me, she had to go in once a week to print checks because, you know, we have that little issue over here. And the controller was going in with her, and she said, you know, as we go through this, the controller has new respect for what we do and what the team does, because they always just thought, oh, they just process invoices. What's the big deal? And now they get to see what the big deal is. So, yeah.
And I think just before we move on to the next session, we were joined by Scott Hancock of Aston University.
Yes.
University, it's an educational function. And what's interesting, Scott's been in the world of accounts payable for 3 years. And I thought the maturity about how he was managing his team and the knowledge that he had for a guy that's only been in AP for 3 years was exemplary. Now, part of that probably because he's been through our program, you know, he's done the manager's program, so hopefully he's learned a little bit there. But I thought the maturity in how Scott handled today, and some of his comments were excellent. So was all the panel, by the way. And I know yourself and Gareth were on the call today, Mary, but I just thought it was, the only way I can describe it is a very grown-up conversation and an expert panel. That's exactly how I would explain that panel, that discussion about two outside.
And the reason it was so great, I believe, is because we had the practitioners on and the insights that they shared. And it's also, you get to see what's going on in the trenches today in this very unusual circumstance that we find ourselves in.
Totally agree.
The problem is with the acknowledgements, like what we were saying, that it's unusual for a CEO, etc., is that if you listen to like other people like Daniel, etc., he was saying that AP is at the bottom. It gets the least funding. It gets the least attention until there's a massive issue. And it's a bit like when I did my customer service qualification. They said, when you go to a restaurant, if it's dirty, everybody complains. But when there's a clean cutlery, nobody says, lovely clean. And I think that's the same terminology. I don't know what word to use. It's the same as in AP.
Yeah.
We're only looked at when we're dirty. We're not looked at when we're clean or doing a great job. And I think people naturally don't give praise, like Rebecca said, encouraging people to give praise of good things that happen. And several other speakers as well have said the same thing. Invest in the people, you know, it's key. It's part of the whole process to making an effective AP team.
Yeah. I think one of the things, I think it was Rachel who said that she had to prod some of the senior management to come down and talk to AP. But again, showing her leadership skills, she did that.
Yeah.
Which was definitely a good thing.
Totally agree. And then the last session of the day today was I joined Daniel Kimpton.
Yeah, I saw.
And yeah, it was a good session. You know, I was interested. They're a brand new vendor or partner of ours in the UK, Mary, and myself and Gareth have known about this organisation for some time. And I know that Statement Matching do quite a lot in the US. So they have a lot of organisations that use their products in the US. But it always amazes me with products such as Statement Matching that more companies haven't taken them up, because it's in these very trying times, the last thing you want to be doing is ticking and bashing statements. Having some automation there ultimately that can do this for you has got to be a positive. And that's why I thought his presentation was quite good actually today.
Well, you know, the funny thing is, if you talk to any of the duplicate payment auditors, the first thing that they do, the very first thing when they come into a company is get statements, because that's how they recover the open credits. And I often tell people, if you do nothing else, go get that money yourself. Why are you paying somebody? And if you can have an automation solution that will help you, that doesn't cost much, you know, and you'd be surprised, or maybe you wouldn't be, how many companies don't do it.
Yeah, Gareth?
Well, you know my view on this, Jamie. To me, this is my bread and this is the holy grail of AP to me and what I do. This is how I get my recognition. I wasn't born with a silver spoon. I don't speak Queen's English, and sometimes I go off on lots of tangents, etc. So a lot of people are like, who's this crazy guy? A bit like Richard and his cup of tea when he said, you either think, what's he? That's me. But once I put a statement in front of them, a manual one that I do, which is comprehensive, and it does both sides of the fence, what's on the ERP system and what the supplier's saying, and it shows all the differences that Daniel was talking through as well. It's a game changer for me. Directors, CEOs, I'm the best thing in the world then, and you can see that from my recommendations, etc. It totally changes everything. And like Mary said, you know, when you say, oh, there's these guys come in and find all the monies that we can reclaim back, and you're like, how much did that cost? Oh, that, you know, X, Y, Z. You're like, what? I could do that if you just invested the time in some of the stuff. Now, this is another level. It's something that I've said to Jamie, why don't we design this? But we can't, we're not that level of IT. So this is bridging that next step from what I normally do. So this is, instead of us doing it manually at zero cost, but high percentage of using manpower, etc. And it's like he said, when I do my rec, it's it's out of date already the next minute, because things are changing. Whereas this, because he's doing a daily feed, the next day he's back to being up to date again after that push of data from the client. So this is like the next step up. So to me, like Jamie said, I'm scratching my head why you wouldn't want this. And he made the point about auditors as well. And you have Mary as well. Again, when I go to places, normally they've got an external audit and they're not happy because of this. So once I show them a reconciliation and the steps that we're doing to rectify the matter, getting rid of the root causes, the audit, tick it off and sign it off, and off we go. So this is like an extra step to what I normally do, but making life a hell of a lot easier.
Right, and ultimately, if they take it, doing you out of some work.
Well, look, Mary, I think it's the most passionate I've seen.
I think there's a couple of areas to improve on, but I'm not telling them unless they pay me. that percentage of what they were showing at the end of the show.
But I think the point is, I've never seen Gareth so passionate, by the way. But I think you're right, Mary. I think the idea really is that it's like everything. You know, when you bring an audit professional in and they go and find money that's, you know, that's overpaid, duplicates, fraud, whatever, you'd think that would be the end and that they would learn them by their mistakes. The auditors would never be brought in again, but they don't. Organizations, very, very few organizations learn from those audits. They go back to their old ways and actually sometimes increase fraud and risk.
Yeah, it's mind-boggling.
And the thing is, I mean, but that goes back to the managers at certain degrees of these functions, so that they need to take those. It's not only a cost, but you need to learn from those opportunities. So the likes of Gareth as a consultant will never be unemployed on the basis that Gareth will always go in and do best practice. He will show them. But then when Gareth leaves, if they don't follow suit and carry on with what Gareth's instructed them to do, and you know, I'm 20 years as a consultant previously, and I used to get frustrated, but I was getting a job. But I think systems like, you know, going back to down the system, statement matching, for the cost, you know, cost of entry, it's a 30-day rolling contract, from what I can gather. It seems to be a great product. Clearly, you know, as the association, they're a new partner of ours, and what we will be doing, obviously, is we'll be going into that system ourselves, looking at that. When we do our teaching courses, we talk about statement recs. So we may well get Daniel to come and do some demos to our students. That might help. But I think, yeah, you know, I'm hoping that will help our audience, especially in the current environment where resources are going to be lower. Cost is all going to be a thing that's going to be important to people. I know tomorrow, for instance, we've got a big day on fraud prevention. So, and to your point earlier, Mary, if people don't do the reconciliations early doors, then how are you going to keep the fraud at bay? So I think anything that can help those environments has got to be a positive.
Right. And, you know, with a system like his, you can identify the duplicates or the inappropriate or whatever it is, the credits early and recover them instead of, so now you recover a little bit of money, a little bit of money, a little bit of money at each time, instead now of having to go to the board and try and explain where this $2 million came from, because that's also another embarrassing conversation. And I've actually seen companies who have not recovered it simply because, how are we going to go and explain this to management? And I mean, I'm on the floor holding my heart. It was like, I'll explain.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, tomorrow actually, I think, you know, because obviously it's a day of fraud tomorrow, for fraud prevention, not day of fraud.
Fraud, right. Protection, right.
And I know this is your bag, actually, Mary, and not only you're an AP guru across all subjects, but it's an area that you've been absolutely on your soapbox for a long time, promoting and pushing the, you know, the controls around this,
right,
the information, the communication. So tomorrow is a full day around fraud. We're joined by an awful lot of people tomorrow. I know you're doing a keynote for us tomorrow. Deborah Richards.
Yes. Yay, Deborah.
And again, I think it's a really important topic. And, you know, and to go back to today, really. So we're all working from different environments. Some people are returning to work, and fraud is there. It always has been. I've been on another call today, and the first topic that came up was fraud. You know, how are AP and P2P professionals managing potential frauds, phishing scams, and all this good stuff. So I think tomorrow's going to be a really interesting day, and our panel discussion tomorrow should be interesting as well, because I know we're going to talk about real stories as well. So we're joined by a group of people tomorrow who are going to give us an insight on what they've actually seen. So rather than what we potentially could be avoiding, what's actually happened in businesses, as well as what have they done about it? So what did they learn? How can they avoid these things in the future? So not only are we going to listen to your insights, Mary, and get your advice and hopefully put that into place, but we can listen to you know, what happens in the UK businesses also.
I can't wait to hear that. I can't wait to hear that panel.
Cool. I wonder if there will be more of a surge of like filtering emails, because like on your phone, I don't know in the US, but in UK we get loads of scam calls, and I noticed didn't get any, but since they've gone back to work last week, I noticed that I've got a few
starting
phone calls
again.
now. I'm wondering, will that be the same for the emails in AP? Will people be pushing more to try and get that, because they'll think, oh, they'll be under more pressure? I wonder if we'll see an increase. It'd be interesting.
I cringe to think about what we're going to find a few months from now that happened in these last few months, because I suspect, it's just my gut, I have nothing to back this up with, that there's been a bit of fraud, just because people were hustling. The controls are not always what they should be. I don't want to even think about the security on the technology. So it's going to be a fun few months on this issue, I think.
Well, look, tomorrow looks like it's going to be an exciting day. It's going to be a long day tomorrow because we've got a lot of discussions tomorrow. Today, obviously, again, brilliant discussions around leadership. Again, like I do every day, I thank you both very much for joining. Mary, you know, how you're staying up this long, you know, from 5 or 6 in the morning in US time to where we are today. And you've got to go and do your AP Appreciation Day and week today as well. So
tomorrow. Tomorrow, you and I.
we've got one planned tomorrow afternoon as well, haven't we, Mary? So the days seem to be all merging into one at the moment. But I think when we can get together, hopefully in October, I think we can all rest assured that, if you like, the lager, the beer, the wine, whatever it is, it's all on me, because I think we all deserve it at the end of this week.
Yep. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks very much. I'll see you both tomorrow.
Okay, bye-bye.